Let's see. So Steve used to be a blood banker, right? For the sake of
Still am. Once you're a
Oh,
blood
okay.
Yes,
banker, you're
yes,
always a
you're
blood
always
banker.
True,
a
true.
blood
It's like the
bankers.
Marines. You never leave.
Hi, welcome to Blood Talk Small Talk, where we aim to provide a deeper understanding of the teamwork it takes to ensure quality care in a healthcare setting. Tune in for a mix of serious science and casual conversation, and you might be surprised just how much you learn behind the scenes.
So today we have a special guest. His name is Steve. He is a very successful young CLS and who grew up the ladder very quickly. So yeah, Steve, please tell us a little bit about your current positions and your typical day of your current role, what it looked like.
Sure. Thank you for the invite. I've watched your video on YouTube.
Oh,
Of
thank
course,
you.
and in addition to that, of course, I have also referred many of my students to see some of your video as one of the resources for them to
Mhm.
review over the blood AABB technical manual. So a little bit about myself. I currently serve as the clinical laboratory scientist instructor, overseeing the training of 12 CLS students from our academic partner. Contrary to my title, the traditional understanding of my role from the previous person who held my position, 40% of my role actually involves directing, overseeing, facilitating, and collaborating with different people and leaders within our organization. And only about 20% of which actually involves the actual teaching. The other 40% involves managing and supervising the students, being a liaison with our academic institution.
Yeah, what's your
You know,
day-to-day work is looking like, because I think
right.
from our understanding, you're also the first one, right, to have this position. So you are really laying the groundwork for the
Mhm.
whole,
Yeah. I'm really the first one in about literally a decade. So
Mhm.
when I first took over this role, um, nobody really know what I'm supposed to do. Even the people who hired me,
I
they
don't
don't really
know
have.
if it's make it harder or it's easier.
It does, but while it does make it harder, but I like this type of work just because that it gives me a lot of room for creativity. But um, just to continue though, like our every day again for my job, every day is very different. But it doesn't really fall too far from what I just described regarding what I would
Mhm.
do on the day what my role was supposed to do. So sometimes I have to respond on the fly. For example, like investigating needle stick injuries of a student who is
Mhm.
on phlebotomy training. I have to
Oh,
drop what I'm doing and then go drive down to another clinical site like 20 miles away, just to make sure that the
has that
necessary.
happened?
Yeah, it did happen.
Mm.
Um, um, but of course, I wanted to make sure that the student is fine and then the necessary paperwork has been filed for like such an industrial accident. We want to make sure that the students properly cared for because after all,
Mhm.
even though they're not an employee of our
Mhm.
organization, they are still entitled to the same type of treatment while they are under our care. And that's kind of where I guess the the teacher and the director side of me trying to come out and take care of my students in that sense. So what I do enjoy in terms of what I do is that I get to work with the leaders of our organization and collaborating with them to develop ways to make teaching students more efficient. And in the same way, the resources we use to teach the
Mhm.
students, that itself can also be used in the future to onboard new CLSs when they get on the bench. And all of the hospitals and medical centers within our organization is transitioning from individual silos into a more of a larger enterprise. And one of the things that we foresee, at least from uh, people above me, they foresee was to have a standardized ways of doing everything. So there's standardized way of bringing in instrumentation, standardized way of making SOP or storing SOP, meeting different standards, and at the same time also this involves teaching also, right? A training, teaching, and one of the really great things is also that because of my a little bit of my teaching background, one of the things that we are trying to develop is to develop a leadership development curriculum for some of our managers and some of our supervisors. Like, we're because the nursing actually, the nursing leadership they're very big on developing this type of leadership development program as they try to empower the nurses. But this is something that the lab does not do very much. And there are so many things, and I think we can all testify that, oh, gee, I really wish my supervisor took some classes on management or how to handle people, or human resource laws, and that I really don't think he should have said that to me. And things that, or how to effectively motivate someone, inspire someone, instead of just saying, like, hey, can you go work overtime? Or like, hey, instead of that, or doing something like, hey, I really appreciate you taking the time, and I know it's not easy. I just want you to know that we really appreciate your work. Sometimes words, they're cheap, right? So there are non-monetary ways to motivate individuals. So that's what, in a sense, in a nutshell, what I do and what I do enjoy the most about my current job.
Thank you, Steve, for sharing that. And a little bit of that come from real experience where, like both of us was like, you're doing overtime instead of like, you know what? We needed some coverage. Can you fill in?
So we all did the same program, but different years, right? Peach was ahead of us, and then Steve and I, we were in the same class, right? Initially, I remember your background, you did something else, but then came to do CLS. What changed your mind from your initial idea or profession to like steer towards pathology and the clinical laboratory?
So prior to becoming a CLS, I was actually, like pretty much most of the students who stumble across the CLS field, I was pre-med. And at one point, my aspiration was to be a surgeon. But then after finishing my bachelor's, I thought, I could really bolster my resume by by perhaps doing some more research. So I did 4 years of research, published some papers, in developmental biology and molecular biology. And that was kind of my field. I want to do cancer research. And then I think that I would look really good for my resume and for medical school. But of course, like during the course of my, my study as a master's as a graduate student for my master's degree, my primary investigator, who happened that's basically my PI in the research world, that's essentially your boss, right? So he happened to be on the educational board of a local university, who happened to be our current academic partner. And that was their first year of recertifying and reaccrediting with NACOS to become restart the CLS training program.
Oh, wow.
So that was the first time I was introduced. And some of the supervisors that I work with today, I remember meeting them back in the days when they were in the first cohort.
So prior to that, you don't know about CLS at all?
Prior to that, I had no idea what CLS are. Although I will say, though, the university that I attended did have a major called microbiology major with a minor in medical technology. And this university always had that. And then traditionally, these students who graduate that degree would then go on and look for their 1-year internship, and then in the hospital or any type of like institutions to complete their requirement, and then they would then go to take the California CLS board exam at the time. So that was the traditional route. And one of my really good friend, is currently a supervisor of a public health lab in one of the local counties. And then that this was happened to be one of my undergrad friends, and so after so much time later, that's when we found out. So, oh my gosh, now we're in the same industry. So, except we're called
Cool.
something different now. We're no longer medical technologists. We're clinical lab scientists.
Yeah, they keep changing our name, right? ASCP calls us medical lab scientists, MLS. It's just a lot of confusion. I think that attributes to why our profession wasn't widely known. We went to the same university. Actually, I don't remember if you recalled that we both went. We stumbled upon it. But
Oh, wow.
yeah, but I'm surprised that you actually heard about it at our university in undergrad, because I had to hear from it externally before I pursued it. But it's really nice that we were able to stumble upon it somehow. But basically, I wanted to ask, are you really happy having pursued this, and is it something that you can see yourself continuing on for the rest of your career?
I think that is a great question. So, I think earlier during the introduction, I did mention about like it was kind of a culture shock once I got into the industry. I think like any graduate student at the time, I mean, being a graduate student at the time, and the predicament that I was in, with multiple different factors affecting my decisions, I was a little bit shocked when I first came into clinical lab science. One good comparison that I can make is that when I was doing research, whether it's for MD or trying to go for PhD, etc., we're always taught to be open-minded about things and be flexible and be adaptive to your techniques and to what you have to do, because we are really trying to, as a researcher, you're really trying to find out what's in the unknown using known technology or known methods to figure out what is unknown or what is yet to be found. So creativity, it's something of a valuable asset of mine that I've developed during that 4 years of grad school. Now, when I became a CLS, and I think Mars probably still remember of some of the questions I will ask on your presentations, and people used to get mad at me for asking questions, but even though we're required to ask during clinical chemistry, but after getting to the CLS field where things are more rigid, where we have to follow policy because we are bound by federal law and regulations and state regulations and different accrediting agencies for us to follow and to perform the same test using the same method over and over and over and over again. So that itself, it was the biggest culture shock to me, because your creativity, or my creativity at the time, was no longer an asset, right? So my biggest asset becoming almost like a liability when I got into this industry.
Interesting. I want to add on to that. When it comes to clinical hospital setting, I also got a culture shock, but for a different point of view, I guess. I was surprised of how lax the procedures are, like the techniques. Because I used to do research for molecular micro. So everything is down to the micron, like all those like pipette, this is how you pipetting. But then when I get to like the hospital rotation, they'll be like, oh, just do a drop. I'm like, how many microliter? Like a drop? Like, what do you mean a drop? I can't wrap my mind around that. Like a drop. Like I don't used to that kind of unit. Is like, how many microliter? Like I can do 100 microliter. I can do 10, but like a drop. Like how can I know? How can you drop and my drop is the same drop? And then when you do and then like a cell suspension, around 3%. Like, what do you mean? So that was shocking to me. It took a while for me to adjust to, like, you know what, it doesn't have to be that precise. But it's also because what Steve was saying, saying everything is so, well, I guess part of it's really routine, right? Like the procedure, you have to be very exact of like how you do it. So the reagent that they built for us to perform this type of test, they already built in a certain amount of like a buffer. If you go a little less, if you go a little bit more, it still works. Versus like a research lab, it has to be very exact of your measurement, or your results could be wrong. And nobody can tell you did it right or wrong because everybody is trying to figure out the answer. So that was
Right.
very shocking to me.
Yeah, and I definitely agree on that. But in addition, to an addition of a comment, really, is that I think, as you know, I'm a blood banker by trade, so in the science, in the field of immunohematology, really we still go by drops, by percent,
Yeah.
and sometimes. And when I took an immunohematology course in undergrad, I remember one of the practices we had to do is you were given a stick and you were given a suspension of red cell. Now make 3 to 5%.
With the
And you had
stick.
to, with a stick, you had to be able to tell the color. And that was one of the practice that we had to do. But it just happened to be in those cases because you got to think that in blood banking, really, you don't really have sometimes, depends on the nature of the test and who's yelling behind you, right? To pushing you to get the work done, is that we sometimes don't have that luxury of using
Precise.
a precise pipette to measure the actual volume, right? So that's why it is important for us to being able to tell just by the color, and then that it's acceptable, and then use that, and then using drops as a mean of performing the analysis, such as like a cross match, right? So
Yeah. And again, like I don't want anybody to watching who are not familiar with it, the procedure, thinking that, we are just wishy-washy in the lab, that we're not follow the procedures. Um, even though like we're using sticks and drops, it's actually like we have like a buffer that built in. And then that's why we go to extensive training programs. And even after you're done with this training, when you go to work, they also test your skill. And we have what we call competency every single year that we have to pass, just to make sure that, everybody follow exact same thing, keep up the standard, and that is it's accurate what we perform.
So I guess I have a bit of a contrasting view to this. So
Really?
Steve was
Yeah.
saying how he used a lot of creativity during his like master's program, right? While doing research, and then the culture shock of moving to the clinical lab where it's very procedural. I liked the structure of having I guess the not routine, but having a set procedure for everything. I wanted to pursue a master's afterwards, but I was like, I don't know if I can do research like every day. You have to keep thinking about like what you're going to do next, your creativity aspect. But I knew that I wanted to be in the lab. And I think the fact that we have those set procedures, basically like, how we learn in our chemistry undergraduate, had to follow a procedure manual to do the reaction. I liked having that stability within our profession. And it, to me, doesn't seem repetitive, even though you are following a procedure manual every time, because each patient is different, right? Even though you're doing the same thing, sometimes it routes to whatever. If you're in micro, you're still doing the same thing, but you have a flow chart trying to identify your organism. So I don't want some of the viewers to think like our job is repetitive. It can be, but it's not
I think
draining.
certain aspect of
Yeah.
it is just so
Mhm.
that we have a standard, but
Yeah, like you were saying.
everybody come to the hospital for different reasons. Everybody health. at a different point. Like nobody, have exact same situation in your body. Like again, like, like what I always closing the blood talk with, blood talk with is that your blood tell you the story of your health. So basically each tube is different. So that's why that would make it not routine, I would say.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I guess in the way of I guess to clarify what I was saying in terms of routine or performing the same procedure over and over again is that the comparison again in research is that sometimes we develop our own techniques. So for example, when I was running I mean, I'm still running a test called like Western blotting, right? It's one of the very common
Yeah.
molecular biology technique. So rather than, getting it from a commercial source, I used to make my own. And I used to make my own gradient and I used to decide, okay, I'm going to have this gradient between maybe, 3 to 12%, or maybe tomorrow I might do a 2 to 8% just to see if I can improve the clarity of my bands on my gel, right? So, or when I, doing the actual transfer from the polyacrylamide gel, what voltage I'm using. Am I going to adjust the voltage today? I'm going to try to see if I can do that to see if I can enhance the definition of my bands, etc. So these are some of the things that we do have in it, in research that is more flexible
Yeah.
versus, the clinical laboratory techniques are predefined and we're doing the same technique, the same thing, but of course it will lead to different outcome. Again, like you guys were saying that, each individual is different. Your blood, everybody's blood is different. And that is why blood bankers, I would think blood bankers will not lose our job because, you know, you know, people have been trying to create artificial blood for decades and it still haven't happened yet, right? And that is also why organizations such as American Red Cross and universities, the New York Blood Bank, all of these blood banks are out there because again, saving a life is using someone's blood. That in itself is an altruistic service a one person performed for the benefit of someone else who they will never met, right? So that is one of the things I guess to clarify in terms of what I was trying to say in terms of
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Let's see. So Steve used to be a blood banker, right? For the sake of
still am. Once you're a
oh,
blood
okay.
Yes.
banker, you're
Yes.
always a
You're
blood
always
banker.
the
True, true.
blood
It's like the
bankers.
Marine. You never leave.
If this position didn't open up for you, and obviously though we know that you still would want to climb higher, but let's say you had another 5 years or so before an opportunity to be promoted came up. For those 5 years though, would you still have been happy staying in blood bank?
I think so. Actually, I really enjoy first and foremost, I really enjoy the discipline itself in blood banking.
High five
Uh,
there. I really
yeah,
enjoy blood
yeah.
bank.
Part of it is because I think it really is that adrenaline rush. That's why I'm saying that we're like, I feel like sometimes the blood bank is like the special forces. Not to put other department down, but like we feel like we're the special forces. We're like SEAL Team 6 going out there and fighting the battle, and because we have to deal with surgeons yelling at us, hey, why am I not getting my blood? I'm saying, hey, yeah, your patient have 13 antibodies, right? Like try that, try that for a run, right? So but yeah, that's just kind of like playing fun at the different team. But in the nutshell though, really is that I really enjoy what I do and I know what I do and the way I do it and my performance and my response to a trauma has a direct, immediate impact on the outcome of a person's life. Right. So and my knowledge in blood banking sometimes saves doctors from having a malpractice lawsuit, right? Because there are countless times that they just want to transfuse whatever they can, but in reality, it's not really the best product that the patient should be getting, right? So yes, so in short, if I didn't get my current role, I would have definitely still stay in blood bank in the field of blood bank. In the end, I do feel that I ended up getting into a very, and first is a highly desirable, but second is a highly fulfilling job for me. And I think that right now I am doing more impact than I could ever do as a as just a solely manager, a manager of a blood bank.
Actually, that's what I wanted to say a little bit. Like, in our class, we all knew that you were going to succeed and go far, Steve. But I think that your job is very rewarding. Not only that, because you are giving back to the program that we all did. And since we went through this school and, we all ended up at training hospitals affiliated with our school, we know exactly how the program went. And we train the students as they come in. So we know, like, we hear from them exactly what's difficult. They give us feedback. We try to reform it. And I think that you have gone up to this role and you overlook a bunch of students who are following in our footsteps, essentially. You're shaping them into better CLS, which we need in this field. We all, it's a small community, right? Everybody knows everybody for some
That's
freaking
right.
reason. Everybody knows everybody. And so, like, at least for me, when I'm training too, it's like I want to instill good habits, because who knows, like, if they don't work with me, they might work with my friends or someone down the line who'll be like, oh, who trained you? Oh, Mars did.
Mhm.
Well, she did a shitty job. Like, not only that, like, I don't want that to happen. I want everyone to have, like, good coworkers. But very
Right.
happy, Steve, that you ended up in this role, because you listen very well and you will take initiative to change what needs to be done. And so I look forward to seeing you and working with you as this continues on. I think so far our students are pretty much enjoying you.
I wanted to say something. I think, like Steve was saying a bit, like, I don't think you just end up there, because, like, from knowing Steve, like, throughout, like, this year, he's always trying to find a way to like, improve himself. Like, he's very driven. So I think all this thing has added up and kind of led you to have this, become successful. And that is also why we, like, wanted to invite you here, so that you can share it with, like, the rest of us, including, like, the new students, or, like, people who are thinking of becoming a CLS, so that they know that, once they get a CLS license, they're not just kind of buckled down into, like, a live staff or doing the testing. There are options for you to kind of go up.
Yeah, that's right. I think this probably lead us a little bit in tangent to different topics, but in terms of recommendations for any aspiring CLSs or any current CLSs who are looking to, like, just wondering, how am I gonna get up there, or how am I really gonna get out? So my recommendation is always improve yourself. Finding ways to make friends. You have to network, and you have to look outside of your existing organization. What I mean is, oh, let's go look at a bigger hospital. Grass is greener on the other side. No. To me, like my gardener actually said to me, right? When I see your yard, I know it means money, but your yard is brown. That's because someone like him will come in and care for my yard and make it beautiful, right? It's a business opportunity. So if you're in a place that it's not doing so well, right? That is an opportunity for you. That's an opportunity for you to utilize your skills, your creativity, go out there, learn something, try something new, and that you can improve you can be the solution to the problem that your organization might be facing for the past decade or even more. And also, don't be afraid to email someone higher up, because there might be those that will be intimidated by you, right? Because of maybe your credential, or maybe because your creativity, maybe because you have great ideas you want to change, and yet the people who supervise you doesn't want to change because they just want to stay there.
Sometimes change scare people.
Yes,
Yeah.
sometimes change scares people. That's definitely the truth. And don't be afraid to email those people, to email the people above them, because you never know. Because they will not know your existence until you let them know that you exist.
I just wanted to say, what is it? You're a scientist. Or you're gonna be a scientist. Keep curious, ask questions. Keep up to date. If you want to see what someone else is doing, maybe they have a more efficient way. Just it's always about learning. We're not just done with school. We have to keep learning.
Yeah, that's a really good point, about when you're saying always learning, because that is so true. I wholeheartedly agree with that statement that, you have to be open to learning and open to opportunities. So one of the things that I'm trying to learn, I read papers, I read journal articles, but the point is that it got to a point that I was really wondering, oh, gee, I wonder what other hospital are doing, right? How am I going to find out? So what I would do is, instead of maybe getting a job there to find out what it is like, I became an assessor for one of the organizations that actually accredits blood banks, but also accredit different laboratories. So getting involved with them really brought me and opened up my eyes to other hospitals, because some of the hospitals, as big as they are or as small as they are, a lot of people have some really, really great ideas that they're actually, executing it in their own laboratory, that some of the big laboratories can definitely learn from. And the same thing is that just because it might be a supersized laboratory that's run by some of the rock stars of the field, but that doesn't mean that they're very well run or organized in accreditation, or running in a efficient manner, right? So that just, again, my recommendation: go get involved, go join a professional organization, make friends.
I think we have reached a good stopping point, so we're gonna end this episode here. I just wanted to say thank you again, Steve, for coming. You were a great guest, and I hope you guys loved him as much as we do. If you want him back, leave comments down below. But we hope you enjoyed this episode, and then remember, if you have any questions or suggestions for future episodes, feel free to comment down below. Also, you can come hang out with us in our Discord. The link is down below. But we hope to see you guys next time.
Bye.